A very good evening, students. Welcome to the Star taxation classes. In the last session, we have completed the RTP discussion of income tax, right? Which is applicable for November 2022. Now, in this session, let us discuss about RTP discussion of GST, November 2022. Okay, ma'am. Right. So let's go with the first question. Measures Delight Brothers, a partnership firm, is engaged in restaurant business. It is registered under the composition levy scheme under section 10(1) and 10(2) of the CGST Act 2017 for the current financial year. So for the current financial year, for the restaurant business, it has opted composition scheme. So that means what is the rate of GST, Amma? The rate of GST applicable is 5%. Composition scheme kadamma 5%. Its turnover in the state for the month of April was 12 lakhs. So for the April month, the turnover was 12 lakhs rupees. So in the first paragraph, we can answer the first MCQ with the help of the first paragraph. Look at the first MCQ. Compute the tax liability of Messrs. Delight Brothers for the month of April. So what is the turnover for the month of April, Amma? Turnover for the month of April, 12 lakhs rupees. 12 lakhs rupees. Am I right? Turnover for the month of April, 12 lakhs rupees. And what is the rate of GST applicable? 5%. So then what is the GST liability, Amma? 12 lakhs into 5%, 60,000 rupees. 60,000 rupees. Okay, sir. And here you can see one sentence. Messrs. Delight Brothers undertakes intrastate transactions only. So that means here CGST 30,000 rupees, SGST 30,000 rupees. So the tax liability of Messrs. Delight Brothers for the month of April, CGST liability 30,000, SGST liability 30,000. So the answer, yes, 1C. CGST and SGST of 30,000 each. Okay, ma. So you can see answer 1C. Clear, sir? The rate of GST applicable for the restaurant services is 5%. You can see in our material. Come to the page number 58. Composition scheme. Yes. Section number 10, composition scheme of levy. And here you can see the rates of taxes. Yes. The following rates has been notified as composition rates. A restaurant service provider, 2.5% of the turnover of the state or union territory. And state government also levies the similar rate of GST. So that means 2.5% of CGST, 2.5% of SGST. Put together total percentage 5%. Okay, sir. Next. Now, second paragraph. It received new orders for the month of May to run a mess facility for supplying of the food at. So it has got some new orders in the month of May, Amma, for the supply of the food from Vishwas Public School, a higher secondary school, Knowledge Institute of Technology, KIT, an engineering college approved by the AICTE and UGC, and Frontline Hospital. So from these three customers, it has received orders. Vishwas Public School, Knowledge Institute of Technology, Frontline Hospital. Okay, now look at the second MCQ. Out of the new orders received by the firm in the May, which of the following services are exempted from GST? Let us see one by one. Supply of the food at Vishwas Public School, a higher secondary school. It is an exempted service. We have studied in the exemptions chapter. right? So any supply of food services, mess facility provided to an educational institution. An educational institution here means to be an institution which is providing the preschool educational facilities and up to higher secondary school. Okay, sir. Next, supply of the food facility provided to Knowledge Institute of Technology and Engineering College. This is a taxable service. You can ask me, sir, it is an engineering college approved by AICTEs and UGC. Sir, it is covered under the exempted category services. Right. But supply of food to an engineering college, right? It's not an exempted service. Though it is covered under educational institution definition. This institute covered under educational definition institution. But supply of food services not covered. Amma. I'll show you in the exemptions chapter. Page number 79. In our GST material. Yeah. In the page number 79, we have a discussion of education services, right? Services provided to an educational institution by way of catering, including midday meal scheme sponsored by central government, state government, or union territory. Exempted amma, to an educational institution. Sir, what do you mean by educational institution here? Check it out. The above point number 1, 2, 3 of B exemption, point number 1, 2, 3 is applicable only if services supplied by an institution providing services by of preschool education and education up to higher secondary school. Education up to higher secondary school. Right, sir? Every one of you. So that's why in the first case, I've said it is an exempted because here higher education school, and the second case it is an engineering college. That means after +2. After +2. So it is a taxable service, and mess supplying of the food services provided to frontline hospital. This is also taxable. This is also a taxable service. Why? I'll show you in the material again. Come back to our material. Hospital services. Yeah, health related services. You can check out here. And in this supply of food. The canteens run by the hospitals, but here the canteens, this point applicable, ma'am. This point is applicable. The canteens may be outsourced by the hospitals from outdoor caterers. Then the suppliers shall charge the tax and hospital will get no ITC. Right, sir? Are you following now? Food supplied to the patients or their attendants or visitors always taxable. So here the services supply of the food provided by an outsider to the hospital, it's always taxable under. So our MCQ is which of the following services are exempted? Only the first one is exempted. Services provided to Vishwas Public School only exempted. So answer C. Services provided to Vishwas Public School is only exempted. So second MCQ answer C. 2C. Okay, sir. Everyone. Now come to the third MCQ. For doing that, we need to go for the third paragraph. Look at the third paragraph. It is also provided catering services to a Coral Limited company for their annual general meeting. So Coral Limited company conducted some AGM, and in that AGM our Measures Delight Brothers provided catering services. Service was provided on 3rd July. So I can write date of completion of service 3rd July. But the invoice was not issued by the firm to the company. Date of invoice information not available as the invoice was not at all issued only. However, the payment received on 25th of July, for which the bank account was credited on 28th of July. So there are two dates. 25th of July, 28th of July. Now, among these two, which one should I take as date of payment? I should take 25th July because date of payment means to be the date on which the payment was recorded in our books of account or date on which the payment was credited to bank account, whichever is earlier. On 25th in our books, we got accounted for. On 28th, the bank book was credited. So whichever is earlier and 25th of July. Okay, now the turnover of the restaurant business for the current financial year is 48 lakhs. Okay, now look at the MCQ. Third MCQ. Time of supply of catering services provided to Coral Limited Company is. So we asked to determine the time of supply and time of supply of services. Okay, now, and whether it is a forward charge or a reverse charge, it's a forward charge case. Now, in the case of the forward charge case, what is the time of supply of service? The answer is, if the invoice is issued within a period of 30 days from the date of completion of service, then date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier. If the invoice was not issued, then date of completion of service or date of payment, whichever is earlier. In this case, the invoice was not issued. So I should go ahead with date of completion of service and date of payment, whichever is earlier. 3rd July or 25th of July, whichever is earlier, Amma? 3rd July. So the answer is time of supply of service is 3rd July. 3rd July. So answer 3A. 3A, 3rd July. And you can check out this in our material. Come to page number 121. Yeah. Time of supply of services. In that supply of service on which the supplier is liable to pay the tax, forward charge mechanism. If the invoice issued within the time limit, then date of issuance of invoice, date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. If not, invoice is not issued within the time limit, then date of provision of service or date of payment, whichever is earlier. In our case, since the invoice was not issued, date of completion of service 3rd July, date of payment 25th July, whichever is earlier. So 3rd July is the answer. Okay, now for doing the 4th MCQ, let us complete the remaining paragraphs. From the inception of the next financial year, Messrs. Delight Brothers will close down the restaurant business and will provide service of repairing of the air conditioners. Okay, fine. Now let's do the remaining 2 MCQs. 4th one, which of the following statements is most appropriate in respect of the next financial year for Messrs. Delight Brothers? So we have given with the 4 statements. Out of the 4 statements, the most appropriate statement applicable to Messrs. Delight Brothers, we have to select under. First point, Messrs. Delight Brothers can continue to avail the composition levy scheme. Answer is absolutely wrong. No, they cannot. Because in the next year, they are shutting down their restaurant business. They are shutting down the restaurant business and they are opening repairing services. They want to provide the repairing services. So that means in the next financial year, he is becoming an absolute service provider other than restaurant service provider. So an absolute service provider cannot avail composition levy scheme. So the first statement is not appropriate, wrong. Second statement, Messrs. Delight Brothers is not eligible to avail composition levy scheme. Yes, this is somewhat correct. Okay, whether it is most appropriate or not, we will decide later. Okay, next. Messrs. Delight Brothers is not eligible to avail the composition scheme. Correct. Under section 10.1 and 10.2, but can avail the benefit of composition levy under section 10.2a. What is 10.2a, Amma? Optional rate scheme. Do you remember? Optional rate scheme. Optional rate scheme has been introduced for the exclusively service providers whose annual turnover, whose aggregate turnover during the preceding financial year not exceeding 50 lakhs rupees. So this is the most appropriate statement, Amma, because see, point number B, appropriate. They said they cannot avail composition scheme, but it was silent about optional rate scheme. In option C, they said they cannot avail composition scheme, but they can avail optional rate scheme, as they are the exclusive service providers and their aggregate turnover during the financial year less than 50 lakhs. Yes or no? It was already mentioned in the question about the turnover. The restaurant business turnover of the current financial year 48 lakhs. So for the next financial year, this will become the preceding financial year. In the preceding financial year, the turnover is only 48 lakhs, means less than 50 lakhs, means in the current financial year, they can adopt optional rate scheme. Okay, ma'am. And look at the option D also. Measures Delight Brothers can neither avail composition scheme nor avail optional rate scheme. This is wrong, and B and C appropriate, but the most appropriate is C, and most appropriate is C. So answer C. Answer for C. Okay, everyone. Next. The last MCQ, fifth MCQ. Rate of GST applicable for service of repairing of air conditioners made by Measures Delight Brothers will be, assuming that it intends to pay the tax at the minimum rate available. See, once you opted for the optional rate scheme, it is beneficial to opt for optional rate scheme only, because they are going to pay a minimum rate of 6%. Once you opted for the optional rate scheme, CGST 3%, SGST 3% will be applicable, sir. So both put together 6%. If you're not opting for optional rate scheme, you have to pay the regular rates and it will be 12% or 18%. Yes or no? Right, sir. So once you opted for optional rate scheme, the rate of GST is applicable 6%. Clear, sir? 5C, 6%. So that's the first 5 MCQs. And from that case scenario, we have 5 MCQs. So 5 MCQs discussion completed. Check it out, sir. Optional rate scheme, you can check out in our material. Come to page number 61. Yeah, here it is. Optional rate scheme, 6%. Okay, sir. Now, let's go for the problem number 6. MCQs completed, Amma. No problems. Problem number 6. Neelkant Private Limited, a registered supplier of goods and services at Kolkata, has furnished the following information for the month of February. So he is a registered supplier of goods and services at Kolkata. Now we are provided with the information for the month of February. For the month of February. So we are provided with some information: intrastate supply of goods, purchase of goods from composition scheme dealer, services provided by way of labor contracts, membership of a club availed, goods transport services received, interstate services provided, interstate security services provided, inputs to be received in 4 lots, out of which second lot was received. So these are the current month transactions. There are some outward supplies, there are some inward supplies. We will discuss them later in detail. The company has the following ITCs at the beginning of the tax period. That means opening balance of input tax credit, opening balance of input tax credit, CGST 57,000, SGST nil, IGST 50,000. Okay. Note the rate of CGST, SGST, IGST 9%, 9%, 18% respectively. Both inward and outward supplies are exclusive of taxes. All the conditions for availing ITC have been fulfilled, and the turnover of the Neelakant Private Limited was 2.5 crores in the preceding financial year. Okay. Compute the minimum GST payable in cash by Neelakant Private Limited for the month of February. Make suitable assumptions required. So we asked to find out the GST liability to be discharged by way of cash. Okay, sir. So let us start with first step number 1. We need to find out the what is our output tax liability. Step number 2, we need to find out what is the input tax credit available. Step number 3, by setting off this input tax credit available for our output tax liability, then we will arrive at the net GST payable in cash. So in 3 steps, we need to find out the solution. Okay, now, so look at the answer. So this is step number 1. Computation of GST payable on outward supplies. Let us see one by one. What are our outward supplies? Point number 1. Intrastate supply of taxable goods, including 1 lakh received as an advance in January. The invoice for the entire sale value is issued on 15th of February. Total amount of supplies 4 lakhs. This is an outward supply. We have supplied the goods in the month of February. The value is 4 lakhs, but that 4 lakhs including 1 lakh advance belonging to January month. Now, sir, for the calculation of output tax liability for the month of February, should I consider this 1 lakh or not? Because this 1 lakh is not belonging to February, that is belonging to January. That's an advance amount. We might have included this 1 lakh in the January month output tax liability. No, you might not have included this, because whenever you are engaging in the supply of the taxable goods, even though you have received certain amount as an advance, the tax liability arises on issuance of invoice, not on receipt of advance. The month in which you have issued the invoice, for that month only, that value will be taxable, even though you have received advance in the month of January. But with respect to that 1 lakh amount, the invoice has not been issued in the month of January. The invoice is issued in the month of February. So where it was told, you can see the invoice for the entire sale value issued in the month of February. So the entire value taxable in the month of February only. So the time of supply of service goods with respect to advances is the date of invoice. Since the invoice issued in the month of February, that 1 lakh advance amount also taxable in the month of February. Are you following every one of you? Okay, so 4 lakhs will be your outward supply for the month of February. So this is an intrastate supply amount. It was clearly mentioned. So what is the GST liability? CGST liability at the rate of 9%, which will be 36,000. SGST liability of 9%, 36,000. Check it out. CGST 36,000, SGST 36,000. Total 72,000. Clear? No. Second transaction, purchase of goods on this is inward supply. We will look at out in the second step. Services provided by way of labor contract for the repairing of a single residential unit. This is a key point here. Services provided by way of labor contract for repairing of a single residential unit otherwise than as a part of a residential complex. It is an intrastate transaction. Very good. So generally, pure labor contracts with respect to single residential unit is an exempted service. But here, the pure labor contracts not in relation to construction, erection, commissioning. If the pure labor contracts received for correction, construction, correction, commissioning, that is an exempted service. Here you're provided labor contracts and but not for the construction, not for the commissioning, not for the erection. It is for repairing. Since it is for repairing, it is a taxable service. Taxable amma. So 9% CGST. Sorry, amma, just a second. 9% CGST 9,000, 9% SGST 9,000, totally 18,000 number. You can check it out. CGST 9,000, SGST 9,000, totally 18,000. Clear, sir. Next. Fourth point. Membership of a club availed. This is an inward supply. Inward supply, amma. Right? Next. Goods transport services are received. This is also an inward supply. Next. Interstate services provided. Interstate services provided. So this is an outward supply by way of training of in recreational activities relating to sports. This is an exempted service. Generally, any services provided by way of training, recreational activities relating to sports is an exempted service only. So no need to calculate any output tax liability. Sorry, Amma. That is with respect to in the course of employment. You can check out in the note point number 3. Services by way of training or coaching in recreational activities relating to sports is exempt only if provided by charitable entities. Sorry, this is an exempted. As I told, it is exempted, but only provided by charitable entities. Here, that registered person is not a charitable entity, right, sir? Who is a registered person here? Nilkant Private Limited. It's a company, not a charitable institution. Hence, it is taxable amount. And it is an interstate transaction. You can clearly see interstate transaction. So one has to calculate IGST amount at the rate of 18%. At the rate of 18%. So 10,000 into 18%, 18,000 rupees. IGST. Okay, sir. Next. Interstate security services provided to ABC Higher Secondary School for their annual day function organized in Fintech's auditorium outside the school campus. Sir, if security services provided to educational institution within the educational premises, within the institution premises, it is exempted. But here, the security services are provided outside the school premises. Security services are provided outside the school campus. Hence, it is a taxable service amount. Hence, it is a taxable service. So 15,000 rupees interstate and so one has to calculate IGST 15,000 into 18%. 15,000 into 18%. Calculate amount, you will get 2,700. Okay. Next. Inputs received. That's an inward supply. And so what is your output tax liability amount? 36 plus 9, 45,000. CGST payable. 36 plus 9, 45,000. SGST payable. IGST 18 plus 27, 4,500. So our total output tax liability 94,500. Step number 1 completed. And now moving on to step number 2. This is our step number 2, sir. Calculation of total input tax credit available. Okay, let's start with the opening balances. 57,000 nil and 50,000. They are our opening balances now. 57,000 nil and 50,000. Okay, mom. Now let's look at the inward supplies. Whatever the input taxes we have paid in the February month, current period. Inward supply student, the very first one, purchase of the goods from a composition scheme dealer. So whenever you are purchasing the goods from a composition scheme dealer, you are not entitled for input tax credit. For composition scheme dealer, input tax credit not availed. And those who are buying the goods from composition scheme dealer, they are also not eligible for input tax credit. Yes or no? This point we have already studied in composition scheme, chapter number 3. Suppose that if I am opting for composition scheme, I am not eligible for composition input tax credit. If you are buying the goods from me, you are also not eligible to claim input tax credit, sir. Okay, now are you following, sir? So on this 5,50,000, nothing will be allowed as input tax credit under. Purchase of the goods from composition scheme dealer, nil. Okay. And first of all, you're not going to pay any input tax out of it. You're not going to pay any input tax because the composition scheme dealer shall not collect any tax from the subsequent buyer. Yes or no? So you are not going to pay any input tax. Hence, no input tax credit allowed. Next. Next, inward supply. Membership of a club availed for employees working in the factory. It is an intrastate transaction. Credit not allowed. You are receiving these services for the purposes of your employees. For your employees' benefit. So input tax credit not allowed, amma. Membership of club, it is a blocked credit. We have seen, amma. We have seen. It's a blocked credit. Restricted credits. Yes or no? Next. Next, inward supply. Goods transport services are received from a GTA. GST payable is 12%. It is an interstate transaction. 2 lakhs is the value of the inward supply. And 2 lakhs into 12%, 24,000 input tax paid. 24,000 input tax paid. And okay. So now can I claim this 24,000 as my input tax credit? Answer is absolutely yes. Since the service provider opted for 12% liability, 12% GST rate, input tax credit is allowed to you only. If in case, if service provider opted for 5% of the GST, then input tax credit not allowed to use it. Yes or no? So 12% is opting for input tax credit is eligible, allowed. You can calculate. You can take that amount. Since it is an interstate transaction, IGST has to be calculated, sir. 2 lakhs is the value of supply into 12%, 24,000. Okay, ma. Next. Last one, inputs to be received in 4 lots, out of which second lot was received. So generally, whenever you're receiving the input goods in lots, the total amount of input tax credit can be availed only on receipt of the last lot. Yes or no? And this is only the second lot. You are going to receive the entire amount of the input tax credit only on the receipt of the 4th lot, the last lot. Since it is the second lot, you are not eligible for input tax credit. So chondama, input tax credit nil, nil, nil. So the total input tax credit available, CGST 57,000, SGST nil, and IGST opening balance 50,000, current month input tax paid 24,000, put together 74,000. This is the input tax credit balances available with us. Next, step number 3. Step number 3. Computation of the minimum GST payable from the electronic cash ledger. Minimum GST payable. Now, first take the output tax liability. What is output tax liability, Amma? 45,000, 45,000, 4,500. Output tax liability. $45,000, 45,000, 4,500. Okay, now first, whenever you are paying the GST liability, first try to utilize fully IGST balance. IGST credit balance, try to utilize fully, Amma. You have IGST credit balance of 74,000. So out of the 74,000, first utilized the balance for the payment of your IGST liability. You have IGST liability of 4,500. So the first priority for the payment of your IGST liability. Okay, ma, 4,500. And still you have 69,500 IGST credit balance. Now this 69,500 either you can utilize for the payment of SGST or you can utilize for the payment of CGST in any manner, in any order. And first go for CGST, then SGST, or first go for SGST, then CGST, or some proportionate amount, your wish. But here, if you look at, you don't have any input tax credit balance of SGST, and in SGST, you have input tax credit balance 0, but you have a liability of 45,000. So it's better to use your IGST credit firstly for the payment of SGST. So utilize 45,000 for the payment of SGST. Okay, now. So then your SGST liability becomes 0. And still you have 24,500 credit balance lying in your IGST account. Now you can utilize it the same for the payment of the CGST and it. So finally your IGST balance becomes 0. So 24,500. Okay, ma. So 4,500 we have utilized for the payment of IGST. 45,000 we have utilized for the payment of SGST. 24,500 we have utilized for the payment of CGST. Clear? Now the IGST liability becomes 0, SGST liability becomes 0, whereas you have a CGST liability still 20,500. You have a CGST liability of still 20,500, which you can be paid through your CGST credit balance. You have plenty of CGST credit balance. 57,000 you have credit balance, out of which utilize just 20,500. So your CGST liability is also 0. The answer is GST payable from the electronic cash ledger 0 only. You can check out. So 20,500 CGST credit used to NMA. Then the minimum GST payable in cash 0, 0, 0, 0. Clear, sir? So that's the answer for the problem number 6. Check it out, Amma, and ask the doubts if any. So let's continue with the problem number 7. Rimjin sales, a registered supplier receives 100 invoices for inward supply of the goods or services involving GST of 10 lakhs from the various suppliers during the month of January 2022. So totally he received 100 invoices from the various suppliers which involving 10 lakhs of GST. Okay. So out of the 100 invoices, details of 80 invoices involving GST of 6 lakhs have been furnished by the suppliers in their respective GSTR ones filed on the prescribed due date, therefore, and such details have also been duly communicated to the recipients of such invoices in the form number GSTR 2B. Okay, sir. So, problem number 7. Now we are in GST discussion. Problem number 7. Let us analyze the information provided to us. Totally, we have received 100 invoices from the various suppliers, which involving input tax of 10 lakhs. 10 lakhs. But out of the 100 invoices, Only 80 invoices have been uploaded by the suppliers in their GSTR ones, and the same is reflected in the GSTR 2B of the recipient. The same were reflected in GSTR 2B of the recipient. Okay, ma'am. And the GST involved in these 80 invoices is rupees 6 lakhs. Okay, sir. Now, the remaining 20 invoices have not been uploaded by the suppliers. Remaining 20 invoices have not been uploaded by suppliers in their GSTR 1. And the input tax credit attributable to these 20 invoices, 4 lakhs. See, when the suppliers have not uploaded these invoices in their respective GSTR ones, the same have not been reflected. Same have not been reflected in recipients GSTR 2B. In recipients GSTR 2B. Yes or no? Now the question is, compute the ITC that can be claimed by Ringim sales in their GSTR 3B for the month of January 2022 to be filed by 20th of February, assuming that the GST of 10 lakhs is otherwise eligible for input tax credit. So we are asked to find out the amount of the input tax credit that can be claimed by the Ringim sales. Sir, here we know the provisions with respect to the invoices uploaded by the suppliers in their GSTR 1, and the same amount is reflected in the recipient's GSTR 2B. 100% of the input tax credit you can avail amount. So 100% is, that means the entire 6 lakhs rupees you can avail as credit. You can avail as credit. So eligible input tax credit. Eligible input tax credit. The entire 6 lakhs rupees you can avail. Because suppliers have uploaded that invoices in their GSTR ones, the same is reflected in the GSTR 2B of the recipient. Now with respect to the 20 invoices have not been uploaded by the suppliers in their GSTR ones. So earlier we used to have a provision that we used to have the provision that 5% of the eligible input tax credit we can avail under. What is eligible input tax credit here? 6 lakhs. 6 lakhs into 5%. So that means 30,000 we can claim as credit. This is the old provision, existing provision, which have been amended right now. Amended, sir. We got a new amendment in this provision. Sir, initially when this provision was introduced, now there was a limit of 20%. Then the 20% reduced it to 10%. Then the 10% reduced it to 5%. And now it is 0. Now the department said, as per the latest provision, the input tax credit can be availed by the recipient. Input tax credit can be availed by the recipient. Availed by the recipient only when invoices or debit notes uploaded by the supplier in his GSTR 1 and the same is being reflected in recipients GSTR to be. So only when these two conditions are satisfied, then only the recipient can avail the input tax credit. Then only the recipient can avail input tax credit. Condition number one, the invoices must have been uploaded by the supplier in his GSTR1 on or before the due date. That means 11th of the subsequent month. And whatever the invoices uploaded by the supplier in his GSTR1, the same should have been reflected in the GSTR2B of the recipient. Are you following, sir? Every one of you. If you take the example of the current problem, so January 2022, the supplies have been made, sir. So for January 2022, for the filing of the GSTR1, what will be the due date, Amma? The due date will be 11th of February 2022. 11th of February 2022. So the supplier should upload all his invoices in GSTR1 on or before 11th February 2022. Then only the same will be reflected in GSTR 2B from 12th February 2022 onwards. GSTR 2B is available to the recipient from the 12th of February onwards. 12th of February onwards. So whatever the invoices uploaded, up to 11th of February 2022, the same will be reflected. The same will be reflected in GSTR 2B of the recipients with effective from the 12th of February 2022 onwards. Right, sir? So must have been uploaded and the same must have been reflected. Then only the GST input tax credit relating to such invoices 100% allowed, Amma. Whatever uploaded on or before 11th of February, whatever reflected, the same will be reflected. The same will be reflected in GSTR 2B of the recipient. So to the extent of the amount reflected in the recipient's GSTR 2B, to that extent 100% credit you can avail, Amma. You can claim. You can claim. Suppose that if the supplier filed GSTR1 on 15th of February 2022. So that means here the supplier filed the GSTR1 after the due date. So generally the due date for the filing of the GSTR1 is 11th of February. But here he filed the GSTR1 on 15th of February. So that means whatever the invoices uploaded up to 11th February reflected in the GSTR 2B, and whatever the invoices uploaded from 12th February onwards, the same will be reflected in GSTR 2B of the February month, not January month. Are you following now? Every one of you, right? So in this case, invoices uploaded in GSTR1 after 11th of February 2022, right? The same will be reflected in February month GSTR 2B. And when this will be generated, Amma? This will be generated on 12th of March. This will be generated on 12th March 2022. So January month 2B started visible to the recipient from 12th February onwards. February month GSTR 2B started reflecting from 12th March 2022 onwards. So that means any invoices uploaded into the GSTR1 after 11th of the February, that invoices input tax credit he cannot avail for January month. He can avail for February month. So only those invoices which are uploaded by the supplier in his GSTR1 within the due date and which are reflected in the input tax credit GSTR2B, right sir? Then only to that extent he can claim input tax credit. The two conditions must be satisfied. Supplier must have been uploaded in his GSTR1 and the same will be reflected in the recipient's GSTR2B. So in the given question, you can see only 80 invoices details consisting the GST of 6 lakhs have been furnished by the supplier in their respective GSTR1s filed on the prescribed due date, and such details have also been communicated to the recipients in their GSTR2B. So this 6 lakhs he can avail fully. With respect to the remaining 20 invoices consisting of 4 lakhs of GST, the credit will be allowed 0. Earlier we used to get 5% of eligible input tax credit. That's now the old provision that has been amended. Now with respect to the invoices not uploaded by the supplier, the input tax credit eligibility is 0. Okay, now so look at the answer. So problem number 7. So with respect to the 80 invoices furnished in GSTR1, the amount of ITC involved in the invoices 6 lakhs, the amount of input tax credit that can be availed 6 lakhs. Fully you can claim. And 20 invoices not furnished, amount of ITC involved 4 lakhs and credit available 0. So the total credit available is 6 lakhs rupees only. And this is the amendment. This is the amendment. Very, very careful, sir. Okay. Every one of you. Input tax credit in respect of any supply of the goods or services or both is available to a registered person only if the details of such invoices, debit notes in respect of said supply has been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supplies, that is GSTR1, and such details have been communicated to the recipients of such invoice or debit note in the manner specified in 37. Thus, in respect of the 20 invoices not furnished, no input tax credit is available. Okay, sir. Next, problem number 8. We have two sub questions here. Examine whether the supplier of the goods is liable to be get registered in the following independent cases. Two cases are given, two cases are independent. Amma. First one, Rudra Builders of Rohini, Delhi, is exclusively engaged in the intrastate taxable supply of the building bricks. Its aggregate turnover in the current financial year is 23 lakhs. Now we need to decide whether Rudra Builders is liable to get registered under the GST Act or not. Sir, he is from the state Delhi and is exclusively engaged in the intrastate taxable supply of the goods, and the aggregate turnover is just 23 lakhs. So generally, when it comes to the Delhi, if the supplier exclusively engaged in the intrastate supply of the goods within the same state, the supply of the goods, the threshold limit for the registration is 40 lakhs. Higher threshold limit 40 lakhs. So here the aggregate turnover is only 23 lakhs. So less than the threshold limit, not liable for registration. Wait. That's the old provision. Now we got amendment. The higher threshold limit of 40 lakhs not applicable for the suppliers of certain goods. We have a list only. In that list, this building bricks is covered. In that list, the building bricks is covered. So those suppliers who are exclusively engaged in the intrastate taxable supply of building bricks, for them, the threshold limit for registration is 20 lakhs, not 40 lakhs, 20 lakhs. And here the aggregate turnover 23 lakhs, which is more than threshold limit. Hence, Rudra Builders is liable for registration. Liable for registration. So look at the answer. 8th one. First, the first paragraphs explained about the threshold limits for the registration. Threshold limits for a person making exclusive intrastate taxable supply of the goods. is as under 10 lakhs with respect to special category states, that is Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur, and Nagaland, and 20 lakhs with respect to the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Puducherry, Sikkim, Telangana, and Uttarakhand, and 40 lakhs. 40 lakhs for the rest of the India. 40 lakhs for the rest of the India. Old provision is up to this only. 40 lakhs for the rest of the India. Old provision. But now this is the latest amendment. Except for the persons engaged in the making, the supplies of fly ash. Certain specified goods I've mentioned now. Look at here. Fly ash, bricks, blocks, building bricks. The good involving in the question, building bricks. Then bricks of fossil meals, then are roofing tiles, ice cream and other edible oils, whether or not containing cacao, pan masala and tobacco and manufactured tobacco substitutes. Here in our case, the supplier engaged in the supply of the building bricks. Hence, the higher threshold limit of 40 lakhs not applicable. So look at the answer. The benefit of enhanced threshold limit of 40 lakhs is not applicable for Rudra Brothers, even though it is exclusively engaged in intrastate taxable supply of the goods, as it is engaged in making supply of building bricks. So therefore, the applicable threshold limit for registration for Rudra Builders is given in the given case is 20 lakhs. Thus, it is liable to get registered under GST as its turnover is more than threshold limit. Okay, sir. Next, second one, Hira of Himachal Pradesh. Here the supplier is from the state of Himachal Pradesh, exclusively engaged in intrastate taxable supply of footwear. So exclusively engaged in intrastate taxable supplies. He is from the state of Himachal Pradesh. He can avail the higher threshold limit of 40 lakhs. His turnover in the current financial year from Himachal Pradesh showroom is 32 lakhs. So the aggregate turnover is 32 lakhs only, less than threshold limit. So he's not liable for registration. Wait. Go for the entire question. Don't jump into immediate conclusion. Read the entire question carefully. He has another showroom in Nagaland, which is a specified category of the states with a turnover of 11 lakhs in the current financial year. So for Nagaland, what is the threshold limit, Amma? The threshold limit applicable for Nagaland is 10 lakhs rupees. Just now we have seen. So he's having two showrooms, one in Himachal Pradesh, one in Nagaland. For Himachal Pradesh, 40 lakhs threshold limit. For Nagaland, 10 lakhs is a threshold limit. Now, which threshold limit should I consider in order to decide whether am I liable for registration or not? The answer is, we've already studied in our regular classes. If the assessee having more than one showroom, and if any one of the showrooms falling in the special category states where the lower threshold limit applicable, such lower threshold limit applicable to all the showrooms of that supplier. So now, even for the Himachal Pradesh showroom, the threshold limit applicable 10 lakhs. Suppose that you are having 10 branches, Amma. Out of the 10 branches, 9 branches falling in the normal states, 1 branch is falling in the special category state. Now, for all the 10 branches, the lower threshold limit applicable. For all the 10 branches, the lower threshold limit is applicable. Are you following or not, Amma? So here, Himachal Pradesh also 10 lakhs is a threshold limit. So since his threshold limit exceeded 10 lakhs, his aggregate turnover exceeded 10 lakhs in the current financial year, here the supplier, that is Hira, liable to get registered from Himachal Pradesh state and as well as from Nagaland. From both the states, he has to get registered. So look at the answer. Hira could have been eligible for the enhanced threshold limit of 40 lakhs as he is exclusively engaged in intrastate supply of the goods. However, since Hira is engaged in the supply of footwear from a Special category state, that is Nagaland, the threshold limit gets reduced to 10 lakhs. Thus, Hira is liable to get registered under GST as his turnover exceeded 10 lakhs. Further, he is required to obtain registration in both Himachal Pradesh and Nagaland as he is making taxable supplies from both the states. He has to get registered himself from both the states only. Okay. So that's problem number 8. Just go through it once and ask the doubts if any. Done, sir. Next problem number 9. Fashion Queen Limited. We have two independent questions. Amma. Let us go for 9A. Fashion Queen Limited, a registered supplier under GST and dealing in baby products, has an aggregate turnover of 40 crores in the preceding financial year. So, in the preceding financial year, she is having an aggregate turnover of 40 crores. The tax consultant of the Fashion Queen Limited advises to issue the e-invoices mandatorily. However, Fashion Queen Limited is of the view that since its aggregate turnover is less than the threshold limit applicable for e-invoicing, it's not required to issue the e-invoices. You are required to comment upon the validity of the advice given by the tax consultant. So the tax consultant said that, sir, our aggregate turnover is greater than the threshold limit applicable for the issuance of e-invoices. Hence, we need to issue the e-invoices mandatorily. But the company said, no, our turnover is far lesser than the threshold limit. Hence, we are not required to issue the e-invoices. We are asked to comment upon the advice given by the tax consultant. So the answer is, now with effective from the 1st April 2022, with effective from the 1st April 2022, the threshold limit applicable for the e-invoices is 20 crores. 20 crores. If any registered person whose aggregate turnover during the preceding financial year exceeded 20 crores, now in the current financial year, they have to issue the e-invoices on a compulsory basis. It's mandatory. The threshold limit is 20 crores only with effect from 1st April 2022. This is the latest amendment. And in the given question, the aggregate turnover of the supplier is 40 crores, which is more than threshold limit. Hence, the Fashion Queen Limited has to issue the invoices compulsorily. The advice given by the tax consultant is absolutely valid in law. Correct. Valid. Okay. So look at the answer. 9A. With effect from 1st April 22, e-invoicing has been mandatorily for all the registered businesses with an aggregate turnover in any of the preceding financial year starting from 1718 onwards greater than 20 crores. I already told you now the threshold limit is now 20 crores. In respect of B2B supplies or for exports, thus the advice given by the tax consultant of the Fashion Queen Limited for the issuance of invoices mandatorily in the current financial year is absolutely valid in law, as the aggregate turnover of the Fashion Queen Limited exceeds the threshold limit of 20 crores. Clear, sir? Next. 9B. Ministry of Communications and Information Technology, a government department registered under GST, has an aggregate turnover of 52 crores in the preceding financial year. You are required to comment whether the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology is required to issue the e-invoices in the current financial year. Sir, you can see the threshold limit, the aggregate turnover exceeded threshold limits under. It's mandatory to issue the invoices, e-invoicing. But of course, the e-invoicing provisions are not applicable for certain specified bodies And among that specified bodies, government departments also covered. And for government departments, issuing of the e-invoices not mandatory, irrespective of their turnover. Okay, now, so in the given question, for Ministry of Communications and Information Technology, they are under no obligation to issue the e-invoices, even though their turnover exceeded threshold limits. Clear, sir? Next. So look at the answer. 9B, the following entities are exempt from the mandatory requirement of e-invoicing. Special economic zone units, insurance companies, banking companies, financial institutions, including NBFCs, GTA service provider. GTA service provider only in relation to transportation of goods by a road. Supplier of passenger transportation services, person supplying the services by way of exhibition of cinematographic films in multiplex screens, government departments, and a local authority. So for government departments, they are exempted from the mandatory requirement of e-invoicing. Chunama. Thus, above mentioned entities are not required to invoice the e-invoices, even if their turnover exceeded 20 crores rupees. So thus the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology, being a government department, is not required to issue the e-invoices. Okay, sir. So that's answer for question number 9. Now look at the question number 10. The last question. Aadhaar authentication is not required for the persons who are already registered under GST. Examine and discuss the correctness of the statement. You are required to elaborate the relevant legal provisions. So the statement saying that Aadhaar authentication is not required for the persons who are already registered. Sir, with effect from the 1st July 2017, GST came into effect. It's been almost more than 5 years. At the inception of the GST, Aadhaar authentication is not mandatory, sir. For the registration under GST for the registration under GST, Aadhaar authentication is not mandatory. Since last 2 years, it has made mandatory. Right, sir. Suppose that I am a person registered in the year 2017. At that time, I have not authenticated my Aadhaar as it is not a mandatory provision. Right, sir. Now, the statement saying Aadhaar authentication is not required for me because I'm already a registered user, a registered supplier under GST. Are you following now? This is a statement, but this statement is absolutely wrong. Okay, at the time inception of the GST, the provision was not there only. But since last 2 years, the provision has been introduced, and it has been introduced in such a way that Aadhaar authentication made mandatory even for the existing users, even for the already registered suppliers. Are you following now, everyone? So even though I'm a registered supplier under GST, still I need to go for Aadhaar authentication. For new registered persons, that is by default mandatory. During the registration process itself, Aadhaar authentication will be done. Those who are already registered, they have to get Aadhaar authentication also. Are you following now? They have to enter the details, uploaded his Aadhaar details into the GST portal. Then an OTP will get generated. The Aadhaar authentication will be done through an OTP and nothing more than that you have to do here. Just provide your Aadhaar details in the GST portal. That's it. And are you following or not, every one of you? Okay. Right. So here the statement said it is not required, but it is required even for the existing users also. Okay. Now, sir, in case I don't have Aadhaar, I've just applied for Aadhaar. Generally, if I applied for Aadhaar, it will get take at least 15 to 20 days to get my Aadhaar card. Then in my case, don't worry, sir. You can give your Aadhaar enrollment ID. For the time being, you have to upload your Aadhaar enrollment ID details into the GST portal. When you applied for the Aadhaar, you'll get a slip now, Aadhaar slip. In that Aadhaar slip, you will be having enrollment ID. Provide the details. Plus, you need to provide your bank details, bank passport, passbook details, and along with the photographs, right? And then you have to give the details of your voter ID or driving license or your passport in case if you are not having Aadhaar at the time of registration, right, sir? And after you have been allotted the Aadhaar, then the Aadhaar details mandatorily to be uploaded into the GST portal within 30 days of issuance of Aadhaar number. Okay, ma. So look at the answer. The given statement is incorrect. I've already told you. Aadhaar authentication has been mandatory for new registrants as well as for the existing registrants. So with regard to the existing registrants, that stipulates every registered person shall undergo Aadhaar authentication or furnish the proof of possession of Aadhaar number. Okay, ma. Next. A registered person who has been issued a certificate of registration under GST shall undergo authentication of Aadhaar number of proprietor in the case of proprietorship firm. In the case of partnership firm, the partner's Aadhaar number to be authenticated. In the case of HUF, Karta's Aadhaar number. In the case of a company, the Aadhaar number of MD or whole-time director should be authenticated. In the case of an association, body of individual or society, the members of the managing committee, any of the members of the managing committee, Aadhaar number should be authenticated, and trustee in the case of board of trustees. Right, sir. Next. Sir, why should we authenticate the Aadhaar number? In order to eligible for the following purposes: for filing of the application for revocation of cancellation of registration, for filing the refund application, and for the refund of IGST paid on goods exported. Okay, now. So if an Aadhaar number is not assigned to an existing registered person, you may get a doubt. Sir, I'm already a registered supplier, but I don't have Aadhaar number. What shall I do now? Go and apply for Aadhaar. Such person shall be offered alternate and viable means of identification. And they are, you can see here, if Aadhaar number has not been assigned to the person required to undergo authentication of the Aadhaar number, such person shall furnish the following identification documents. What are they? Aadhaar enrollment ID slip should be furnished, and bank passbook with photograph, or voter ID card, or passport or driving license. So you have to apply for the Aadhaar Amma. When you apply for the Aadhaar card, you will get enrollment ID slip. That enrollment ID slip you have to upload into the GST portal, and among these 4 documents, any one document should be uploaded, sir. Any one document should be uploaded. Bank passbook with photograph, or you can see here, or voter ID, or passport, or driving license. However, once the Aadhaar number is allotted, such person shall undergo authentication of Aadhaar number within a period of 30 days of the allotment of the Aadhaar number. Okay, sir. That's it. So with this, question number 10 also completed. That means all the 10 questions of GST RTP November 22 discussed. In the earlier session, we have completed income tax RTP discussion. In this session, we have completed GST RTP discussion. That means the entire RTP discussion of tax paper applicable for November 22 completed, sir. Okay. So I wish you a very all the best for your November 2022 exams. Everyone should go at least do the preparation of this RTP for 2 or 3 times. Right? There are very important amendments discussed in these RTP summa. So one should compulsorily listen to these RTPs and prepare these RTPs. Very, very important. Okay, ma? Right. See you in the next session, sir. Till then, have a great day and good night.